Let's look at a simple retirement planner with no uncertainty in it. This will make a great starting place for teams doing a wealth management project, and it will also make a great project for me to quiz the class on to see how much they know about modeling rules, goal seek, and data tables. So the portfolio at the beginning of the year, let's set that equal to our client's current wealth. We're saying the client has $1 million. Now I'm not going to copy that anywhere, so I don't need dollar signs on that. I could hit enter, but it's going to take the cell to take the cursor down. I'm going to hit tab to take the cursor across. Investment in equities. That would be the proportion of this portfolio that's going to be in equities. And when I look up here at our input section, I see that's 20%. So I'm going to say equal this times this with dollar signs. I'll hit tab again. And so the remainder would be invested in bonds. Because what we've said up here, I probably glossed over it, but of that $1 million, the client we think can make a 2% return in bonds, which 2% is the risk-free rate in this example. But in equities, we think they could make a 7% return, really with no uncertainty right now. And we've currently would like to model 20% invested in equities with the remainder in bonds. We all know that this portion is more risky than this portion, and eventually we'll get to the point where we're modeling that, but not on the very first time out of the gate. The client would also like to take $80,000 out for an annual living expense. So each of these are inputs, so I'm going to select those two, Control, and those, Alt-H-J, inputs. And what I'd like to know is after 10 years, what is my portfolio value at the end of that year? So that'll be an output. I'm going to probably paste a cell over that and change the formatting, but I'll come back. So that's our goal, to see how much our portfolio is worth at the end of 10 years. So if we start with $1 million, 200 invested in equities, 800 invested in bonds, the wealth at the end of the year should be however much we had in equities times 1 plus the return on equities, plus however much we had invested in bonds times 1 plus the return on bonds. Now the drawdown is just the negative of the living expense, and the portfolio at the end of the year is the wealth at the end of the year plus that negative drawdown. So we're at 950. That becomes the portfolio at the beginning of the next year. And if I got all my dollar signs right, I should be able to copy this down and see if it works. Let's see what I got wrong. Looking at the portfolio at the beginning of the year and the proportion in equities, that's correct. Looking at the portfolio in the beginning of the year minus the amount in equities, that's correct. Looking at the wealth at the end of the year is equal to my equities times return on equities plus bonds times 1 plus return on bonds. That's correct. I think this might be an error. Looks like I left some dollar signs off here. So I'm going to come back up, dollar signs, copy, paste, and check this last formula. Looks good. So I should be able to highlight, double click, and then let's reformat this output cell. So with these assumptions and no uncertainty about that annual return, then I should be able to get $426,000 for the client after pulling out some living expenses for 10 years. Obviously, if I would put more in equities, if I would put 80% equities, I would expect this number to go up. And of course it does. Now the game here this semester will be to include some uncertainty, put a standard deviation around that expected return. But not this week. This week we're going to leave it at 0 so we can play games with, let's build a data table and look at the sensitivity to different inputs and see how the output changes and things like that. If you cannot recreate this in Excel, then feel free to give me a call. Have a good day.